My name is Allison Cornish. My pronouns are she and her. I am the Chaplaincy Initiative Coordinator at the BTS Center. I live in Western Massachusetts on lands long stewarded by the Nipmuc people, and I am absolutely delighted to be here on behalf of the BTS Center. And we have a welcome from our Executive Director, Alan, today.
Good evening, friends. Joining Allison in welcoming you. My name is Alan Ewing Merrill. I serve as Executive Director here at the BTS Center. My pronouns are he, him. And I'm joining you from Portland, Maine, the ancestral lands of the Wabanaki people, the people of the Dawn Land, the Micmac, Maliseet, Passamaquoddy, Penobscot, and Abenaki people. It's a joy to bring you greetings on behalf of the BTS Center, growing from the deep roots of the former Bangor Theological Seminary, today focused on cultivating and nurturing spiritual leadership for a climate-changed world. We do that by offering programs of vocational and leadership formation, workshops and retreats, learning communities, reading groups, research initiatives, and public conversations like this one. Our programs bring together pastors, spiritual directors, preachers, engaged laypersons, and chaplains and spiritual caregivers in every sector. And in everything we do, we hold a value and posture of cooperation and collaboration. And we're so grateful for all of our partner organizations in this work, including, and maybe today especially, the Chaplaincy Innovation Lab. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michael to bring greetings.
Yes, thank you all very much for joining us today. And the Chaplaincy Innovation Lab is just so pleased to welcome all of you here and to partner with the BTS Center. Thank you for the welcome, and I'm so glad that the lab can join you for today's session.
I wanted to say a few words about the BTS Center's work on chaplaincy and climate. I believe, and those of us working at the BTS Center believe, that there's a huge importance in bringing the chaplaincy skills and posture to those who are affected by the climate crisis. Some of the skills that I know that the people in this room bring include engaging grief, adapting to change, holding paradox, uncertainty, and surely meaning making in a climate changed world. We at the BTS Center and the chaplains and the spiritual caregivers that we work with help people connect the dots, such as at this event, where we're helping to connect the issues of personal health to planetary health. And not just directly, such as the pollution or new and persistent diseases or hunger that we see as a connection, but also the spiritual health of us and planet Earth. So if you're new to our work, we hope that you'll stay connected, and you'll hear more about that towards the end of our event, how best to stay connected. But let's now figure out who all of you are, or at least some of you. If you have the chat open, or if you don't have the chat open, open it. We'd love for you to say hello in any language, because we know many of you are coming from different cultures, different places on the planet. So in the chat, just let us know, where are you zooming in from today, and say hello in any language. Yeah, Milwaukee, hello, greetings. Madison, Chicago, Ola in Delaware, Louisville, Ithaca, oh my goodness, snowy Vermont. It's going by so quickly. The Netherlands, hello. So glad you're here. San Antonio, Texas, the Finger Lakes, Berwyn, Pennsylvania, La Crosse. Oh my gosh, so many wonderful places. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Half Moon Bay, California. And we also want to ask, just so that we have a chance to kind of know who's in the room, have you had a chance to watch the film prior to this conversation? Just maybe a thumbs up and or a yes. Many yeses. Oh, far more yeses than nos right now. Watched half of it. That's great. Wonderful. Susie and Nicole, that gives you a little bit of an idea of who's in the room in terms of having seen the material. No worries at all if you haven't had a chance to see it yet. You'll definitely get a lot out of the conversation. And finally, we'd love to hear what brought you to this conversation today. What has brought you to this conversation today? Yeah, the subject. That's great. Land loss in Louisiana. Yeah. Concern for generations to come. Curiosity. How artists speak to these times. Oh, absolutely. Canary woman too. Great. The subject, spiritual health of so many, including yourself. Interest in personal storytelling through film. Oh, these are wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Keep them going. We're going to keep moving because we have such a short amount of time together. We want to hear as much as we can from Susie and Nicole, but I'm turning it over now to Michael, who will introduce our conversationalist today. Michael.
Thank you, Allison. And I'm going to give just a brief bio for each, and I'll put the full in the chat there. We are so fortunate to have very well accomplished and highly esteemed colleagues here today, so it would take us a long time to read it all out. But to begin with, Dr. Susanne Moser is a geographer, editor, and prolific writer who seeks to embody and enact her deepest calling and thus to serve the world and the Earth community from a spiritual, soul-anchored center. I don't know why I tripped over that. But has done so with many organizations, and you can read that in her full bio. And then, of course, Nicole Betancourt's work explores the complex intersections of people with each other and nature. She does this through documentaries, video art, and community projects. She is an Emmy award-winning director from the show Before You Go on HBO, and Sustainability Leaders Fellow, and the winner of many Film International Festival Awards. And so Nicole is highly experienced in this area, and we are so glad to have her with us here today as well.
I think that's my cue to take over. So thank you so much. It's wonderful to be with you here, Nicole, and with you all. Thank you all for joining. One of the things that Michael did not say in this particular introduction, and I appreciate you making that short, so we have time for our conversation, is that Nicole and I are really good friends. We have been fellows of a program called the Donella Meadows Leadership Program. And I think it's 20 years now, Nicole. I know, we have not aged one bit. Anyway, I knew you before all this unfolded in your life. So it's kind of a really amazing arc. But I guess I wanted to say that as a way to kind of invite you into an intimate conversation, just like your film is such an intimate film. I saw it last night again for the maybe third or fourth time. And it just feels like you're letting us in on such a deep and personal and intimate and at the same time universal story. So I really appreciate that. And I guess I want to say one other thing in the spirit of sort of setting the stage. While I'm watching your movie, I'm also reading Terry Tempest Williams' latest book, The Glorians, which I don't know if you know about it, but of course your film lives in the same universe as Terry Tempest Williams' work. You know, when you think back about her most famous book, Refuge, on the intersection between environmental health and personal health, in her case, cancer. And in this latest book, there is this beautiful sentence I want to read. I want honest conversations that do not end on the obligatory, hopeful note. So I'm inviting you into that kind of an honest conversation for today. So thank you for being here. And maybe because there are so many people who have seen it and who haven't seen it, maybe our first question could really be almost like a little bit of a summary, if you will. And the way I would phrase that is, how do you see the relationship between your health and the health of the planet?
Wow. First of all, I'm just so excited to be here with you, Susie. And I'm such a fan of yours and the poetry with which you go through the world while living in this land of facts and data. So I find that fascinating. So thank you for doing this conversation with me. And I'm so touched that anybody watches the movie. And to be in a conversation like this is really quite an honor. So thank you for having me. So I'm in New York City. I was born and raised here, and my parents were, carving out their future here from their sort of distant. My dad grew up mostly in Puerto Rico, my mom in Vermont, and they came here to sort of become something, I guess. And so I grew up with that ethos of just, career and working and pushing and pushing and pushing. And then I got sick, and no one knew what was wrong with me. I was getting worse and worse and worse, and it felt like it felt like I was going insane, and I was mad at myself, and it was just a terrible, terrible, terrible time. I had 2 young children, and who are also very energetic children, so that compared to me not being able to move was a nightmare. But then eventually I did get diagnosed with ME/CFS, which is myalgic encephalomyelitis, which is basically, it's used to be called chronic fatigue syndrome. It's also related to long COVID, and it can be started by, an illness or an accident. I was in a minor surfing accident that sort of made my whole system collapse in an ongoing spiral, which still continues, unfortunately. And the diagnosis made me feel less crazy, but it didn't help because there was no cure and there's no solution. And doctors are like, yeah, good luck with that, So, or take these 10,000 vitamins for $10,000, And I ended up spending a lot of time in bed, half awake, half asleep. And I started to feel this sort of horror synergy with what was happening in the planet. It was this feeling of being connected in a way to sort of Mother Earth as a mother, these layers of motherhood, and being completely disregarded in a way, and also feeling, and it was through dreams, and all these things were happening to me in this sort of half awake, half asleep. It was a very spiritual experience, and it ended up leading me to feel connected to the earth in a way that I hadn't before. So it became a kind of gift, actually. And I'm not saying it's great to be ill, obviously, but it became a kind of opening, I guess, of connection. And I was trying, once I had faced this sort of death of it, the loss of it, I was able to see this incredible opening to another way of seeing the world, of interconnected. And I can talk more about that later, but the next thing that happens in the film is that, one child is completely despondent about what's happening in the world, and the other one gets incredibly sick with similar symptoms to me and has long Lyme disease and can't go to school and is in and out of a wheelchair and is like, oh, wow. I don't know if you can hear the sirens, or it's been muted, but there's sirens going on outside on cue. We're rushing to the emergency room. It was terrifying as a mom. And so, like, how am I supposed to learn from this? Like, how am I supposed to learn now from my kid being sick? Like, that seemed impossible to me. Just impossible. But I had no choice, right? So my daughter and I ended up studying, Pilar and I ended up studying neuroplasticity and learning about ways to sort of remap, and how our stories change our bodies and how our stories change the landscape also, which is what I'd like to offer you guys. And it became a kind of gift. And I would say, you said that thing about happy endings, like the film, for those of you who watched part of it, I saw, like, get to the end, because it does open up, I think, into a more balanced look at the world that has sort of a belief that, well, we can map a new story. And so I'm trying to want to get thing. So, because I know you're going to ask me some more questions. So
yeah, I will. I know each of these questions is like so huge, but I actually want to come back to this idea of how the film changed your story in a moment. But I guess I want to just simply say, I just sort of realized you dedicated this film to your mother. That just puts a whole second layer of a spin on it, the way you just framed that opening and overview. So thank you for that. Yeah. So I'd love to get a little bit more into, there was a before and an after, if you will, in your life. How did you think of yourself in your life of yourself? What's the story you told yourself before you got sick of how you related to the earth, of how you walked on it, and how has that changed because of the illness?
I mean, I was very much, I mean, it's called the Unfixing because I wanted to fix everything, right? Like I wanted to fix myself. Of course we do. I'm not, listen, you break your leg, you want to fix your leg. And if there was a pill tomorrow, I would take it, right? To cure me, of course. But it changed me because I was this sort of anxious and worried person that was really in a fear response to what was happening to the world. And which of course, being worried again, I'm not saying, I'm trying to edge this conversation not to be, I may sound like I'm talking in absolutes, but I'm not. When I say, the fear response is actually natural, but it's also can get caught in this loop, right? And so I learned that, oh, wow, I was now in a fear response of what am I going to be able to function today? And this happened to me this morning. Am I going to be able to get up and do this today? The fear clicks in because you're trying to protect yourself. And I realized that isn't helpful to me. And so I was learning to not push through. Like if at MECFS, if you just like push through, you are risking getting sicker. So in a way, you have to live within this window of tolerance, which changes day to day. And that's also kind of like sustainability, right? How do we live within what we have available to us, and not overconsume the planet, right? So it's a similar thing about balance. And then, so I was learning to do that without using fear to monitor myself. And I was also, what was the question? Oh my God, I got so many things I could talk about.
Question is basically how the story has changed for you of your connection to Earth before and after.
I think I saw myself, and it's ironic that I'm saying this because I made a film about myself, but that I'm not the center of the story, that it's not about me saving myself, me saving the world, me doing this. It was really, the world was coming through me, that I was an expression of the world. It became more like I could release that idea of control or power over the sort of hierarchy that and it became a softer, more aligning relationship with my whatever I was going through in the moment, whatever's happening in the world. And that is like a radical shift for me, this idea that even being enough was just sort of and that's the thing that I would offer. Like, what if you're enough? Like, what if you felt enough? Like, how would that change how we function? It's a radical idea in our culture that is all built on this idea that you're never enough. And so when you can't work because you're not feeling well, are you still valuable to society? Are you, and so that thinking that I was enough, I began to think, well, even just being here right now, if all of us think we're enough at this moment, that's radical. Mm-hmm. It's disarming the arming system, right?
Yeah. And just sort of thinking about you changing that perspective as a mother, as an adult, but you also obviously tell the story of your two daughters, one growing into this radical, I hate everything about this place, and the other one actually getting quite despairing at certain times during that. How has it changed for them since the movie? Or it obviously with Pilar it ends on a pretty hopeful note. The way she and her dad sing is just absolutely mind blowing there at the end. But I'm just curious, like, the world is getting hotter, more tense, more autocratic, more fascist, all these, all the stress factors, all the toxic stress that we live in. I'm just curious how both of them and you are faring now in a world and walk through a world that is not getting better. That is, in no way.
No, and we're going to be sort of death doulas in a way for a lot of loss. I mean, that's in a way what the next generation is being called to. Blue says in the film, it's like we're inheriting a broken present, inheriting this world. And I feel like we're not dead yet. Like your parents are still here, like So it's not over, first of all. This idea that the next generation is getting something is kind of like, oh, it's not a responsibility anymore. And also this idea that we inherited it too. It's an ongoing, more fluid thing. And I think, there's, you asked one thing is people want to know, how are my kids? Pilar is in college now, and Blue is taking a gap year in Oaxaca, actually, in Mexico, and they're right now. So there's like, the story is like this, right? And to fit it in a framework where I had a beginning and an end, I compressed things and I simplified things so that I could tell a story as stories are. And I think for my kids, like it was probably one of the worst times of their life, right? Having their mom sick, and for Blue, their sister sick, or being sick yourself. So I don't really engage them too much in these conversations. So, but I think as a way of protecting them, but they're giving me their blessing. And I would like to tell them, I think I would say to them that don't learn to shut down to how you're feeling, because as a way to survive, because it's not going to be helpful. And we're more resilient than we thought. We're not fragile. People have been through, this country has done horrible things. And, racism, slavery, just stealing land it's boggling how horrible things that we've done in this country. And I think we're still here. We're still here. And so we will continue to be here and continue to show up for our world. And it's important it's an opportunity to witness what's happening with a whole heart and not let it crush us, not catastrophize it, also not add a layer of, that sort of second arrow idea in Buddhism, like you get hit with one arrow and then you think about how you get hit with an arrow and you're stabbing yourself with the second arrow with the idea. So let's not add that second layer. And what I would say to them is just try to realize that you're enough, like I said before, and we are in a way being called to believe that things can change. The thing that happened to me when Pilar was super sick, I went to this very fancy neurologist in New York City who specializes in Lyme. And I'm like, hey, is she going to get better? And the doctor was like, this woman was like, well, Dr. Fritsch was like, well, if her mother doesn't believe it, who will? And I was like, oh, shit. Like, sorry. Oh, wow. This is like, I'm sorry, I'm in New York, that was like a real helpful thing that she said to me. I don't think it's something she says to everybody, but I was really grateful because it was like, if not us, then who, right? Mm-hmm. If we can't believe that things will be better, that people can, if we don't believe in like love and compassion and human resiliency and abilities to evolve and grow and to work with each other, and for our body, if you don't believe your body can heal or your child's body can heal, who will?
Well, it's actually a really great segue to, I think you making an interesting distinction here. You said this morning you woke up, you didn't know whether you could do it. You're obviously still living with this illness. What to you is the difference between healed and being cured? Is there one?
How we work with words is different for everybody, right? But for me, this idea of being cured is being fixed, and being healed is being whole. And I think, so maybe there's a linguist in the room who could tell me if that's like literally the origin of the word or not. But so I feel healed. And I'm not cured. Mm-hmm. So that means that I feel whole in the sense I'm part of the world. I feel connected to nature, even in Manhattan, in a profound way. Actually, I'm in Brooklyn now, but it's like this feeling. What does it mean to be healed? It's a more fluid thing. It's more about relationship with the world, with yourself, with your past, with the future, with unseen realities. It's a gentler approach, I guess. And I think those are two different distinctions, because in medicine and even facing climate, I'm constantly, going to be darting from one to the other, which is that, or different scales, I guess, of the fractal, which is that we do need to, of course, fix problems, right? We need to address things, but it's such our dominant way of thinking. And curing has a control kind of element to it for me. It's like you're going to fix it from above. You're going to have power over it, and you're going to tweak it. You're going to make it fix. Whereas healing to me is more of like an inner flowing and listening, a listening and aligning attitude, where you're sort of aligning yourself with healing, and you're listening to what's broken or what feels broken and why. And it has of an incredible, like almost like composting restorative quality. And for me, that has been profound. That has been profound. And it's an ongoing process, because then something happens and you're like, oh wait, I have to now heal myself again. So it's a constant engagement or relationship, but it's a language in a way that I am more and more comfortable in.
Feels to me too that it sort of gives us a charge, like as the world is coming unfixed and undone in many ways, right? And there is no quick way to fix the climate, no quick way ever to undo biodiversity loss or any of these other global changes, right? But in order to ever get to a different place, we must heal ourselves in the middle of this undone, unfixed, unfixing of the world. So yeah, which is a profound charge. And I'm curious, for this audience in particular, what has held you? What has been the faith, if that is even a word for you, or like what's been the thing that's held you through this, at time despairing situation?
Well, I think the thing that was kind of an impetus for the discovery of this journey for me was my dream life. I started having these dreams that were, in the film, you see like an owl literally moved into the window outside my bedroom in Harlem. Very unusual. And it just lived there. There's enough rats, so it had a lot to eat, but it wasn't Flacco, it was a different owl. But anyways, just living there. And I started having these dreams that were like, I would dream of things and then they would kind of happen. And I would wake up in my dreams. And at first I got really scared. And then I was like, well, I'm going to be okay. Even if something really scary happens in my dream, I'm going to walk through it. And I had this kind of terrifying dream. And there was a lot of death, and it was the sort of dark forest that you hear about in sort of fairy tales. And I'm walking through, and these things happen. And then a couple of days later, people talk to me, and things happen that were what happened in the dream. It was just crazy. And I started to realize that time isn't linear, that time folds in on itself. And I can only say that because I experienced it. So I had this experience that I only could have had in that situation. Like the worst thing that was happening to me led me to the best sort of experience of my life. In a way. I done best, but like those two things came together. And for me, this idea that, I started looking into shamanism and stuff and realizing, wow, so this idea that we can heal the past, that we can look back into the past and heal ourselves in future and in past through our dream life, through this sort of and I'm not even saying anything's true or not true. This is just my experience. And that to me is like a clue in how to live in this in-between world, like the beach that's like such a symbol in the film, because a lot of things happen on the beach in my life. It also because Sophie Strand is amazing. If you've ever read Sophie Strand, and she told me in sort of an online thing like this that I was in with her, that it's like an ecotone, right? An ecotone is where you have two ecosystems that come together to create a third ecosystem. And the beach is an ecotone. And so we're in a way in an ecotone between illness and healing, between, the past and the future of the planet and the way it's structured, and also the loss and the belief in a healed future. So this is this sort of fertile ground of this ecotone of the beach. And we can be here in this space that's sort of shifting sands underneath our feet, and look out at the view into the future and be grounded where we are. Like those two things can coexist.
Yeah. Wow. God, I wish we could just talk about the dreams. That would be all good for me. I'm such a Jungian in that way.
Yeah.
But one of the things you make me think of is actually some of my own spiritual work has gone through or been facilitated by an organization called the Animas Valley Institute, and I can put the link in the chat for people. It's a basically nature-based and depth psychological, and it is all aimed at healing, holing, and helping people become soul initiated adults, because so many of us have never had a chance to be initiated. Anyway, in the context of the founder of the organization, Bill Plotkin, talks about how crises can lead us into a kind of descent to soul. And it takes us through this liminal space that you just described, right? The ecotone in your words, in which we have to deeply reckon. But it's also the place where the veil between our present day or present moment reality and something larger is really thin. And so your dreams of like weaving those two together, I think in that period seems particularly prescient to me. But that brings me to the question, do you feel like this illness was in some sense initiatory for you?
I mean, I think in a way, and as a child, I was kind of more open, and I learned to not be, right? To function in school, especially as a dyslexic person, and to sort of kind of hack the system all the time, right? And being ill takes all that away. And it was definitely, I mean, I think an initiation, not into something specific, but sort of a way of being, I think, that had a little bit more magic in it, kind of,
maybe the question is, what have you learned about yourself, like about your deepest core in this process?
I learned that I'm co-creating, like even the film itself. Like I would have a problem with the scene, and I would ask myself before I went to sleep, okay, I have to get from here to there, or I need to, how do I show this? How do I show this feeling that I'm experiencing? And that is not maybe like a traditional documentary filmmaker where you like filmed actually what's happening. I couldn't always do that, right? So I was like, how do I show this? And then I'd have a dream and I'd wake up with the answer. And I'd be like recording it into my phone. So I think there's a way that I've been initiated into this co-creating of the world with spirit, with nature, with my highest self. And so I can ask for guidance all the time now. It's like a little bit more open, I think. And I want to invite now too, that I can be open to that without being ill. Like, can we have this without suffering? I don't know. I mean, when you talk to people who've, initiation rites and country, and all over the world, like usually involves some sort of facing death. And sort of the emptiness or whatever, something along those lines. And so for me, it led me to trust a sort of an inner creative part of myself, because I learned in the world was speaking to me, the way you're living is not working. So I had to then be like, okay, how am I going to live? And I started to work on the film. I started to create. I started with painting my dreams. And that, when I did those things, I felt a little better. I literally felt better. So I was like, okay, I'm going to keep following that. Like you're telling me, or your, whatever that your is, like I'm getting this signal that I need to continue down this, to create. And this is what I'm being called to do. And it became a kind of calling. Like I need to make this film. And now I'm in the process of like offering it to people in a way. So how it's just like, it's just what I need to do. It doesn't make sense. This film is very strange, right? It's creatively, it doesn't fit in a format. It's not about one issue. It's hard to raise money for, hard to distribute, like all these things. It's an insane thing to do, but I needed to do it. So I listened and I started working on it, and it was slow. Spirit works at its own pace, as Grandma Nancy told me. And but people would show up. People would show up and help. And someone would say, "Oh, come to Spain and we'll do post-production." I'm like, okay, it's an amazing producer. And so, it's going to be on television in Spain, So it's like, I just follow, I just listen. It's like water, right? Like, just, okay, where am I going to flow with this? And so I've learned to be in that state of surrender. I'm sorry, it's still the initiation question, right? But I can sum it up in a bullet point because I'm a New Yorker. It's allowing, listening, and receiving. And those are three things that I always thought were weak. They were feminine and they were weak, right? I was always a feminist, but still. So now I see those things as requiring incredible courage, allowing my pain, which is like a surrender, listening to nature, which is sometimes very quiet, and receiving help in whatever form it comes. Those are things that I always thought had to do with waiting. And waiting to me seemed like what women were told to do. You just wait till the guy comes home from the war or whatever. Just wait till you're given permission, So this was a way of like, no, that's a false dichotomy. So I bravely started moving in that direction. I say that I'm brave because I knew how fucking scary. Sorry, Jesus, stop cursing on this spiritual conversation. But I wanted to say that, for me, it took incredible courage. And I only know that because it was really scary.
Yeah. Well, this illness certainly confronted you with your own desire to die, or with the possibility of your death, right? But in many ways, it was an ego death, right? Whatever old ideas you held about yourself, that's what got shed in this process. So we're coming here to the close of our conversation, but I'm just curious if maybe you want to just close with how you now walk through the world, how you embrace that, things are, I don't know, obviously not getting so much better. So how do you basically strike that balance, and maybe daily, of, fighting or working toward, protecting whatever is worth protecting, doing your art, taking care of yourself? Like, how do you balance all that? Maybe I don't know if it's an advice question. I hate to sort of, end on an advice question, but you know what I mean? Like, it's obviously something we all struggle with in these days. So what are your closing thoughts on that?
I think I have a more compassion for myself, to not have answers. And, this idea that it's like, what am I paying attention to? What am I going to listen to? And then I also, I would say that it's, cry, freak out, and that in conversations with your friends, talk about how horrible it is, but don't think that that's the only way it's going to be, because I feel like the news does a great job, right? The news is built on bad news. It's always bad news, right? Mostly bad news. So you don't have to look for fear. It's all there. The thing that we're being called to lean into a little bit is, how do we dream a new world into being, right? Like, can you imagine everything being okay? Can you imagine in your mind that you're healed, the world is healed, and that is sometimes the hardest thing to do, when like, that's not the cool way to be. Like, you hang out with your friends at a bar or whatever, and you're talking about how messed up things are. That's so easy. But if you say like, wow, what about talking about some small thing where you softened your response and you relaxed your body and you reprogrammed a little bit and things shifted, like those delicate sort of moments. Like, if we pay attention to those, like, I think there's an invitation here to recreate a system. Like, we have built a system based on our beliefs and how we see the world. And so how do we we're being invited here to just reinvent how we relate to everything. What is the story we're telling about nature? Not as a resource, not as something to be extracted, controlled, or fixed, but nature as a teacher, nature as like a comrade, as a partner. You know, it's not with us or without us that's better. It's a relationship. And if we could see that as a relationship that can teach us how to be, that to me is an incredible opportunity. And while grieving what we're losing, those two things can coexist.
I feel like you just did this beautiful job of describing in words what I felt in the closing song of your movie, which is this incredibly, like it's not, I mean, the harmonies, you know, that you all are singing, there's always a little bit, just tiny bit off, you know, it's like that's like to get out of the maybe dominant song and sing a different note, or to maybe accept that even in a beautiful song, there are these strange little, you know, all the things that are not going right yet. I don't know. You just beautifully described the sort of the wedding of those two. So thank you, Nicole. It's amazing.
Can I say something about the song just quickly before? Because so the song is The Waters of March, which is a very famous Brazilian song. And I have always loved this song because it's about the waters coming in through, and like the floods that happened in March, and how all these things in life get washed into the water, like a bed, a gun, you know, the joy in your heart, like all these things are washed down the river together. And it seemed the perfect song for the film. And I'm like, how am I going to get the rights to the song? And I just wrote them, and they gave me the rights to the song. It was kind of incredible. I was just like a miracle in a way. And so we are actually having this conversation in March, which is interesting because the song is The Waters of March. And also today is the anniversary of my father's passing from AIDS in 1993. So I just wanted to just say that this moment or this month, it's very meaningful to be having this conversation in March.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow.
Back to you, Allison. Thank you, Nicole.
Oh my goodness. You will see in the chat when you get a chance to visit it, there's been so much liveliness in there. People committing to watching the movie the second time, the third time, and all kinds of images around water. But just kind of where you ended right before the song, I think that Erica's question really touches what you were talking about, Nicole. And it's actually multiple questions, so I'll just put them all out there together. She asks, what if healing recovery, especially for Pilar, wouldn't have happened? How do we live in and with hope if and when recovery doesn't happen? What does living hand in hand with grief hope look like? And in parentheses, asking as a mother of a young adult who is living with chronic mental health struggles. So
thank you for asking that question, and I feel for you. And I hope that you have support and people around you who understand what you're going through. I think you said, you know, that the way it was phrased was sort of like, this is what's happening. And I try and reword things with myself sometimes. Like, people want to know, are you better? I told my mom never to ask me how I'm feeling. I don't want to have to answer that question anymore. I don't want to assess. I don't want to scan. I don't want to figure it out. So for me, it's like people ask me how, but friends still ask. Of course they care. So that's what you do. You ask, how are you? And so I say, you know, I'm in the process of healing. I say it's a journey. I try not to lock myself in a certain state, like an identity of like, I am sick. I am chronically ill. Like I try and release myself from that. And say I'm in the process of healing myself. So these words, you know, your language that you use actually lights up your brain in a different way. It actually it signals to your brain how you are, and so we can in our minds also reprogram in a way how we respond to illness. And the way it works for me is that if I freak out, which is natural, no judgment of freaking out. If I freak out, it makes me more inflamed. It lowers my immune system. It stresses me out, and it actually makes my symptoms worse, like chemically, and also makes me feel worse, right? Mentally, spiritually. So it's this, for me, this believing yourself, like, yeah, this is real and this is bad. But at the same time, I'm okay and I can handle this. Or maybe I can't, but it's like, I'm showing up. You're showing up for today, and it's amazing to be alive. Yeah. I'm just grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be here. And gratitude is powerful. Like, it's powerful in a way that, it's like, it's Oprah, like Oprah with like gratitude journal, like it can become very trite, or like a sign that you see in sort of a gas station, like bathroom or something. But it's really powerful. So the little moments of gratitude are super helpful for me. A certain amount of wonder and curiosity, even towards the difficult parts. When you're caring for one person as a care, because I'm also a caretaker, and I say, the film, I'm much better. My children are much better, but there's ups and downs, right? And it's not my liberty to like tell you all the ups and downs of everything of other people in my family, but I can tell for me, like, there are ups and downs. Like, I lose days where I can't function. And and as you said, Susie, we're losing every day biodiversity, water, animals, creatures, fungi, the whole thing. Like, it's being annihilated recklessly, and you're sort of screaming at the top in your mind. You're like, no, stop. That's also happening. That heartbreak is always happening. But being able to hold that, or live in that tension between those two things of like, yes, we can be healed. We can move forward. Life is still worth living. We can be that. Taking care of somebody else is an environmental act. You are helping the world by caring for one person, making breakfast for your child, going to therapy with your child. Like, that is an act of love for the world. And that is service to the world. You're doing enough,
Wow.
So thank you for your work in that.
Nicole, you just named so many spiritual practices in that one response. I was just like clicking them off, but I'm going to turn it to Michael, who's got a wonderful question to offer as well.
I'm going to sort of combine a few questions here, and you've touched on a few things. You've touched on this throughout our conversation this afternoon, but I want to kind of draw it out explicitly. And I'm thinking, especially for chaplains trying to figure out how to care for people that are going through analogous situations to yours. What would better care have looked like for you, both in the acute phase of your illness and then now as well? And related to that, there's this wonderful question from a pediatric hospital chaplain who says, how can we do a better job of recognizing someone's humanity and acknowledging them without requiring the constant reassessment? So finding that line between nagging you all the time, how are you doing, and helping you know that I am still here for you.
And it's interesting having an invisible disability, because people don't offer you a chair on the train, right? So I know people who carry canes just so that people help let them sit down. So how do we check in? I think for me, I can only talk from personal experience, believing people, first of all, because women and people with unexplained, mysterious illnesses, I mean, that just means that they haven't figured it out yet, right? Or there's not enough research money going to figuring it out. So we call it mysterious. Like, now we know that, what was it? Ulcers, right? Drink less milk and stop being, or drink only milk. I don't know what it was, but don't worry so much, right? And now we know it's bacteria, right? So we were blaming people for their mental health for something that was actually bacteria. So I feel like there's this delicate thing that happens, especially with ME/CFS, where women particularly, we're not just women, but we're taught it's all in your head. You're nuts, right? So we need to know that, yeah, I believe you. I see you. I know it's hard. I think that's the first thing. And that's a profound thing when the world is disregarding you. And then the other is, how can you hold the possibility that you might be well? I think, like Like you can wake up in pain and depressed about being in pain or not being able to do stuff. And it's easy to just be like, okay, I'm going to prepare myself for the worst. It's harder and requires encouragement from community, I think, to hold this possibility that things can get better. And it doesn't mean you even have to have faith that they will, but can you hold the possibility that that you can heal? Can you hold that? Can you be flexible enough to respond to that? And I think that is sort of something that is hard to come by, And I'm not saying it's going to be great. You're going to get better, which is not a bad thing, but it can feel like denial that you're not feeling well. So I think the idea that do you hold the possibility that you can be well? I'll hold that with you, And then I think if you want to help, how can I help? Can I bring you a meal? And little things. Like I had a friend, like I'm still so moved because in New York where everyone's so busy, she would go get my younger kid from school and take them, they use they, them pronouns, take them to dance class because that walking was too hard for me. Like it meant that I couldn't have dinner with my kids. So, those little things are super, super helpful. And just on the front of illness. And I think it applies to how we feel about the world and what's happening in the world.
Could I add one other comment to this? It also helps, I think, to, what we call this, whatever the illness is that someone might be facing, are we labeling the person with that illness, with that diagnosis, or are we talking about, Nicole lives with fill in the blank, right? The distinction between becoming the disease versus being a person that has a disease or lives with or learns to heal with or whatever. I think that distinction is really, really important because it front loads our humanity that has not gone away one bit just because we struggle with a particular mental or physical illness.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I've been learning from my friend who's in a wheelchair about disability rights and disability words. Like, he said, I was talking about something and he's like, I'm really glad you said person in a wheelchair, not, because on buses in New York, he told me, like, they stop the bus and they go, wheelchair coming on. He's not even called a human being in a wheelchair. He's called a wheelchair. And so that's a very important distinction. These little subtle shifts actually make a big difference. Thanks,
I
Susie.
can't believe how fast this time has gone by. It's just like flying, and it feels like we could have another hour of conversation, but we're going to pause here to express enormous gratitude. And Nicole, there are so many comments in the chat about the artistry of your work, and I love, love, love this one that talks about taking the hardest things through creative acts to turn it into something of beauty. And I think that not only your film, but this conversation, you have been doing that. So thank you both, Nicole and Susie, for bringing your hearts into this work. So thank you, each and every one of you, for being here today. And we hope that you will keep the live link for the movie, which is available for you for another couple of days. Watch it for the first time, watch it for the second or third time. And although it does become a little cacophonous, we hope that you'll unmute now and just say hello and goodbye so that we can hear all of your voices before you go away. And those of you listening to the recording, so glad that you were with us today too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank you so much. This was
so
lovely.
much.
Bye.
Fabulous day.
So powerful.
Thank you. It
Thanks,
was great.
Allison.
Wonderful.